Every year without fail, it is now a new tradition for me to do a Orfist Regis deck profile on this channel, and many people will come to view it, with often very much mixed replies. I haven't learned my lesson, so we're back here again. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Resistant4 here. Today I am back to cover Cardinal Dominus Orfist Regis, or Orfisto Regis for my Japanese audience. The reason why I wanted to cover this deck very much in DivineZ is because Orfist Regis comes from a sealed product. For those of you who are not familiar, I'm referring to these Stand Up Decksets, which were these deck sets that came out in the middle of DBT11, DBT12, that came as pre-constructed decks for a few of them. And these are some of the more well-selling products of the year, although the Stand Up Decksets were meant to be short printed because, they were just meant to help people get into certain deck archetypes easier. Orfist was, of course, one of them. And I have covered this deck a few times already on this channel, but I wanted to talk about it in respect to DivineZ. We know about Orfist Regis. We know Orfist Regis exists as a deck, and we've probably seen a lot of results in accordance with it. But I think the million-dollar question that eludes a lot of people is, can we still play Orfist Regis as a main deck rather than succumbing to Orfist Masques? Is there a deck where I can still buy this deck set and just upgrade it out of the box and it'll still be fine? Well, in DivineZ, due to an expanded deck size, energy, and a lot of things actually going for Orfist in this format, I'm going to be presenting a very interesting list I've been having a lot of fun with and quite a fair bit of wins with that I wanted to cover. I may or may not even personally bring this deck to a WGP. I'm actually that confident in this deck list because I find it really fun. I hope to be able to share some of my sauce in that sense, but I do find it pretty interesting in terms of a glass cannon, but yet a deck that can relatively sustain itself for turns 2 and 3. But I will obviously just put this disclaimer before we start: don't expect to beat Shiranui in this deck. Orfist as a whole generally is more fragile, so any forms of Shiranui is just dead in the water. Alright, then we obviously start off with Cardinal Fang Fovi. As you guys probably do know by now, a lot of the Cardinals are actually illustrated by the great Daisuke Iizuka. So because of that, I'm going to stay fruitful to it and I'm going to play the full right line throughout. Or will I? We have, of course, this is Cardinal Noid Rotis. Rotis, when placed on the Vanguard circle, you can generally just search your deck for any one of your World Order cards and just add it to hand. So Rotis is a card that allows a lot of decks to splash in worlds, including Vanguard and Gravidia. But this is obviously his home. This is where the coffins all begin. Generally speaking, there's quite a fair bit of worlds you can search for. You can search for any of your main stabilizing orders, as I'll call it, or some of your more tech option worlds. But generally speaking, I will show you later in the worlds section what you should play, how it works, so that you kind of understand. Orfist Regis' biggest issue is that he kind of scales a bit slowly for some people. So I've kind of created a list where you can still plus relatively easily and you can ramp, and I hope people do enjoy this list because personally I've had a lot of. His second skill doesn't matter, you never call him. Then grade 2 we have Call by Russia. Call by Russia has been reprinted in the Stand Up Deck set, so you completely don't have to worry. He's included as a one-off, so it's just nice, gonna fit in the right deck. Call by Russia matters because he's kind of like Rising Phoenix, but in a good way, and I'll explain why in a bit. When he attacks a Great 3 or greater opponent's Vanguard, if you have 2 or more orders in the order zone, this unit gains 10,000 power. Yeah, that's nice. Second skill is that when you play an order from your hand, you can counterblast 1 and call it from the drop zone. So he's a recurrable 20k attacker that can keep bringing himself back over and over. By having 1 copy of him in the right deck, you virtually guarantee that he will make a debut by turn 3 or 4, and you generally can Soul Blast. Common Russia is what I use on emergency to be able to build up and get a quick attacker on the board. Orfist Regis, who keeps continually replacing the board with Shadow Army tokens over and over again, it is essential for you to still have a card that you can call back during the main phase to conduct your attacks. I know a lot of people complain about Common Russia being expensive. Frankly, I don't blame them. But because it's particularly reprinted in the same set you're buying the rest of the deck in, I think it's still fine. It's still excusable for you to still play off at a 1. Last but not least, the big boss of this show is Cardinal Dominus, Orfist Regis. What happens when you take the God of Coffins and put him into a Gundam-like system? Well, he can just teleport everywhere, and you know what? He hasn't succumbed to the mask yet. When placed on a Vanguard circle, you can choose a world order from your drop or your hand and install it directly. By installing your orders directly, you get their effects without paying the cost. I think that's something I just need you guys to remember, that it's very important, so you can actually discard a lot of your orders quickly, and then you can actually gather their effects without actually paying any cost. And some of your orders are really expensive, like Soul Blast 2. All of that can be easily negated by playing it for free. Just discard it, just make sure it's in the drop by the time Orfist Regis comes out to play. If you did not make that play, if you made that mistake, you can still use it from the hand, but we all know you're losing out here. The second skill is that when it's using attacks, Cardinal Blast 1, choose a card from your hand and discard it. If your world is an Abyssal Dark Night, you can call Shadow Army tokens equal to the same number of 2 each orders in your world order zone, and for each that you call, it gains 5. So basically speaking, it calls at intervals of 2. If you have 2 world orders, it costs 1. If you have 4 world orders, it costs 2. If you have 6 world orders, it costs 3, so on and so forth. It's a very simple, very basic multi-attack strategy, but you have to discard 1 when Orfist Regis attacks. So that basically means that you only really plus, in that sense, of Orfist Regis' skill if you're able to call 2 or more worlds, 2 or more tokens. And you can see where the problem is straight away, because you only can play 1 order per turn. So 1 order, 1 from Regis, you are generally only left with 3. So bit of an issue there, but we will debunk this in a bit. We will show you that there are ways you can fight around it, and it generally is still pretty sustainable. Orfist Regis, because he comes from the Stand Up Deckset, as I mentioned again and again, is very affordable as a deck. So as you can see for the rest of the options, you are either having them reprinted or you can buy them all for quite cheap, so you won't have to worry about it. I want to talk about our worlds first, because I realized a lot of me talking is just not going to make sense if you guys actually have no idea what our win cons in that sense looks like. So for our worlds, we actually play 4 copies of Howling Moonlit Night, 4 copies of Eroding Moonlight. One of them is, I won it as a tournament prize, so you don't worry about it. 2 copies of In the Darkness, nobody knows. And then 3 copies of Overcoming an Eternity. World orders are just like set orders, you just play them once per turn, and then you change your world from world to Dark Knight to Abyssal Dark Knight. Dark Knight is when you have 1 world order, Abyssal Dark Knight is when you have 2. Very straightforward stuff. Just think of it as domain expansion for my younger audience. For my older audience, just think of it as, like, what was that guy called? Diablo, in a sense, when the whole world just boom. Just think of it like that. All of them have different effects when you're played. The grade 2 orders that you are more reliable on, which are going to be Howling Moonlit and Eroding Moonlight. Eroding Moonlight is a Cardinal Blast 1 cost and spawns you 1 Shadow Army token. So that's pretty not bad, but Cardinal Blast is expensive for this deck, so keep that in mind. Howling Moonlit is the best one in that sense, because it costs 1 Soul Blast and it gives you 1 draw. Considering this card was printed in 2021, the fact that this is still the spine of Orfist is freaking insane. But the thing you do want to note is that, you do want to make sure you can at least play 1 or 2 of this by turn 2 and 3, because it's one of the easiest orders that lets you net 0 and it's still advanced to your endgame. It's really nice that for our grade 2 orders, you actually can see the Moon of Brandt in it. So, cool reference to those of you who actually know about the Star Hulks and whatnot. Our other grade 3 orders are kind of our more technical orders that we need to take note of. My 2 of techs are In the Darkness, nobody knows. It costs 1 Soul Blast and it will retire one of your opponent's front row rearguards. Spot removal is strangely very much needed in today's format and society, so you will actually need to use this relatively often. But the reason why we're playing this so little is because we are playing In the Darkness, nobody knows, for a different reason as well, and that will combo in with today's new card, Porax's Dragon. So I will actually come into that later, but just know that this card is one of the more fringe uses of worlds. And the last one is Overcoming an Eternity. This one is the one you are most familiar with if you are an anime watcher, because this is the one that they love to read the name in full. Overcoming an Eternity doesn't really have any on-place effect. In fact, it doesn't have anything at all. All it does, it just gives you a passive effect where all your newborn Shadow Army tokens will gain 5. So if you call a Shadow Army token this turn, it will gain 5,000 power. But other than that, it doesn't do anything. Overcoming an Eternity used to be a very weird card. In original Orfist, it just gives you extra power, then you just sit there and clap your hands. But in Orfist Regis and later on Orfist Masques, it gives all your multi-attacking targets additional power, which, while is very good, it does not plus you at all. It doesn't give you any tangible physical card advantage. It just gives you numbers. So the thing is that it also costs Soul Blast 2, which is the most expensive order in this deck. So you can play that 2 to 3 because generally speaking you will want to superior set this order. You don't want to use the cost for this order. Just keep that in mind. Now that I've covered the worlds in play, the rest of the deck will actually go through very, very easily. For our grade 3s, we play 3 copies of Orfist Regis in the main deck and 1 copy of Orfist Regis in the right deck. And then we play 4 copies of Cardinal Draco Nuvoria. So I've already covered Orfist before, so I will really talk about him in great detail. Nuvoria, please watch the link in the description below. I have actually linked my previous Orfist Regis deck profile, so you can actually take a look at it. But Nuvoria is pretty much a mainstay of Orfist Regis because he's the direct support for him that was printed DBT06. And he has 2 really neat effects. When this unit attacks, this unit gains 2000 power for each world order in your order zone. So he scales equally as strong as Orfist Regis when it comes to his attack, which is nice. And when he's retired, when he just retired from the regular circle of your world's Abyssal Dark Night, you can spawn a Shadow Army token. How are you retiring this during at all, you may ask? Because you're not Phantom Blast Overlord. When you call over with a Shadow Army token and Nuvoria passes away, you can spawn a second Shadow Army token, which means that you don't actually minus from calling over, you in a sense net 0, and you can continue your multi-attacking assault. It's very impressive. Nuvoria is another backbone card of Orfist Regis that you definitely need to play. If you're playing Orfist Regis, this is definitely still a 4-off in my opinion. And moving on to our grade 2s. Our grade 2s, which is quite a lot. We play 4 copies of Polaris Dragon, 4 copies of Solid Stunner, and then 1 copy of Combine Rusher. So let's actually get into this very quickly as well. Even though this is a list I've repeated before, these 2 are actually brand new to this list, and I want to explain them. Combine Rusher, though, we've already talked about him, so I will not elaborate any further. Solid Stunner is a card that I've slowly come to appreciate lots in Orfist. I used to hate him. I personally thought he was the stupidest card on planet Earth. Even though I won a small event with him in EVA, he never really earned my respect, to be honest. But now that we have the new 54, now with the DivineZ rule changes, you can check the link in the description, and now that we have so many worlds in the deck, have you seen this? This is a lot of orders that you can actually search out. It's almost a quarter, if not half the deck at this point. It increases the number of targets you can hit for Solid Stunner, and it's really good. What does Solid Stunner do? Once per turn, when you play an order from your hand, look at the top 5 cards in your deck, choose 1 order from among them, add them into your hand, set order, add it to your hand, and this unit gains 5000 power. For free! This is a completely free skill that you can use once per turn. And all he has to do is exist on the board. This is your number 1 mulligan target to play on turn 2. Solid Stunner is just an amazing card from set 10. I don't get why people haven't picked up on this guy. He's freaking amazing. But the fact of the matter is, now with the new 54 and that Orfist Regis has more sizes, this is definitely a premier option in Orfist, which is why you would actually remember him from my thumbnail. Because I think this guy has definitely carried me a lot in terms of the +1 or +2 card advantage he's given me. It's insane. I really, really support this guy in my opinion. I feel moving forward with a bigger deck size, this guy is definitely an auto-include. But if I want to talk about someone who's also an auto-include, is Polaris Dragon. Previously in my older Orfist deck profile, I covered it without Polaris because I used to think we didn't need it. But after it was reprinted in the Stand Up Deckset, and now that I've kind of warmed up to him, I can really see why Polaris Dragon is really good. In fact, now I would change my opinion to say that Polaris Dragon is a must-play in Orfist decks. Because he allows you to truly, and I mean this, truly diversify the number of orders you play. Now the names of your orders you play means a lot, which is why I was willing to add 2 copies of In the Darkness Nobody Knows, because he actually counts and checks which worlds you have actually used to turn your knights into Abyssal Dark Night. What does he do? When he is placed on a rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard of Orfist in his name, Soul Blast 1, choose a world card from your drop zone. If it is not the same named world as in your order zone, you can install it for free. Yep, for free. This is your second and only other option of superior setting a world order card. The other of which obviously being the titular Orfist. So it is worth noting that if you actually can pull off one Polexis Dragon on the rear guard and one Orfist when right, you can actually fit 4 world orders into your order zone. Which means you actually can use Orfist Regis to multi-attack twice. Like, it's... The consequences of this deck is just seriously insane, and I really love it. But the issue is that you need to set up. You seriously need to set up. You need to have an abundance of worlds lying around to fish off and to be able to fight. And that's why I also included Solid Sterner. And to be honest, like, I know a lot of people rather defend other options. Like, a lot of people say, what about Grunder? I love Grunder. You know, Grunder can mill from the top 7 2 different orders. Like, why wouldn't you play Grunder? Because Grunder doesn't plus. Grunder just mills 2 and puts him in the drop zone, and then that's it. Like, it's basically Knight of Silence Galadin. You don't get anything. You have to wait until your Abyssal Dark Night, have him attack, pass away, and then you can choose one order zone, one order card from your drop and add it back to your hand. This guy straight up just gives it to you. Straight up. No cap. He just hands you the order and say, here you go, bro. It's insane how good this card is, and with the amount of plussing that Solid Sterner gives you, with the amount of setting that, you know, this guy gives you, like, the whole deck just pops off in a way that you should honestly try for yourself. But I know what you're saying, Amis, I don't care. Like, Orfist Regis still has the -1 every time he attacks, and he still has to call over his rear guards. Like, this is still a really shit deck. I disagree. Polexis Dragon has one more effect I've yet to read to you. When this unit is discarded from your hand during your turn, or if he's called over by a card, you can actually draw a card as long as you are in Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight. That's right, Polexis Dragon is not only a superior set, he can refresh your card advantage. If you are calling a Shadow Army token or retiring him during your turn, you can draw a card. Or if you're discarding him for Orfist Regis' effect that activates when battle, you can draw a card. It's literally a custom card. Like, yeah, okay, you get it, buy the set, okay, you get the joke. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Moving on to our grade 1s. Our grade 1s, we obviously play Rotis. He's in the right deck. He's a very good boy. He helps us search for our worlds, our general worlds. So as long as you play one of your grade 2 worlds early, and then you get enough names to split off and use your stuff for polar axis, generally speaking, it pays itself forward that you can set up 4 worlds by turn 3, and you generally win the game from there. It's just that simple. We play 2 copies of this girl. I forgot the name. And then we play 4 Perfect Guards. 4 Perfect Guards because we want to stay alive. But if you want to play Elementaria Sanctitude, you can be my guest. And Elementaria Sanctitude is also reprinted in this set. So you can pretty much see that I'm really talking about an out-of-the-box set. But I'm too lazy to sleeve it, so here you go. This girl, her name is very simple. Her skill is very simple. Place on Rearguard Circle. If you're in Dark Knight, Soul Charge 1. If you're in Abyssal Dark Knight, you can Soul Charge 2. Alright, I mean, it's nice to have Soul Charge. This deck does use a lot of Soul for stuff like, Howling Moonlit, as well as your MVP, Polar Axis Dragon. So, this is really just more of a safety net, if anything, but I'd rather just have the idea of being able to Soul Charge once per game. It can help a long way. Second skill is that if you don't like this girl on the board, you can Soul Blast 1 and retire her and spawn a Shadow Army token. So, alright, I mean, she replaces herself for 15k attacker. That's really sweet. And, if you time it at the right time, it can also work for your Overcoming an Eternity by giving you a 20k attacker or booster instead. Don't forget that your Shadow Army tokens are also grade 1, so, they can attack and boost with 15k. Nice. Last but very not much least, we also want to talk about triggers. We play 1 copy of Elder Breath. Elder Breath is every Brandt Gate deck's second win condition. I feel like I don't need to explain this one. And then we will play 4 heal triggers. We play 8 crits because we want to kill people. And strangely, despite being a peace reliant deck, we play 3 fronts. because this deck builds up very offensively as early as turn 2 to push, 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 push. So it's generally okay to actually play fronts in this deck because the firepower will pay off. And because you have a higher card to shield ratio, check out the link in the description for my DivineZ video. Generally speaking, it pays off more than just a draw. You can draw an Orfist, but you need to translate it to actual firepower to kill. And as we said, we play 4v. And that will wrap up my Cardinal Dominus Orfist Regis deck profile for DivineZ. As you can see, for those of you who actually come back every year to watch me talk about Orfist, this deck really stays the same. I don't think that much of the deck fundamentally changes. It's just that we've gotten new tools, new methods, and new ways to try and adapt with Orfist Regis as a card. The issue with Orfist Regis when he came out in 2021 is that he was just awfully undersupported. Like, he was just god-awful, terrible garbage. Oh, sorry, 2022, even worse. He came out in 2022. It was just terrible. But as more Brandt Gate support came out, as more kitted love was given to him, when an entire package product was given to him, like, yeah, it does help a lot to really balance out a lot of the problems that this card really had. Very frankly, I really enjoyed playing this deck and testing it for DivineZ. With the exception of all my strategy losses, I dare say that this deck is still pretty potent and worthwhile for your money. The effect fronts, for those of you who are not acclimatized, you can actually pick up from a reprint in triple drive booster. My copies aren't, but you certainly can. So if you do the math, you can actually just buy, the effect triggers, which only cost about 400 yen each. You can pick up Solid Stunner while it's still cheap. Solid Stunner is like a 200 yen card at the time of this recording. Maybe I caused this price to spike up to, quite a fair bit, but frankly, it doesn't matter. So you can do the math, and this deck will still probably end up to about the deck set plus another 2,000 off range yen at most, which is very affordable and very worthwhile for today's meta and economy. You are really getting quite a bang out of your buck. I really don't think I have much more to say about it. I think this is definitely a good showing in terms of showing how you can still play Bushiroad sealed products even though they have been negatively impacted by DivineZ, in the sense that you have to go out and, buy more cards to put in the deck. It sucks, but, Bushiroad is a company, it's not a charity. They still have to make money somehow. If not, who's funding your WGP, guys? Thank you all so much for watching. Again, if you would like to see other DivineZ deck profiles, please let me know in the comments below. I am still working through a very, very, very large pool, testing each at every break time I have. Even though I'm personally straddled with some personal, difficulties and issues, I'm still trying to make the most of my time before DZBT1 to be able to bring you this content. So I really hope you guys appreciate and even learn from it. If this video inspired you to pick up Orfist Regis yourself, that would be the best, because I really feel that this deck is really fun. And it's nice, Latiny and all, and it's drawn by the best artists in Vanguards. So definitely please give this a try if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.